Guys, what's up? This is B coming to you from G&A today. So here's my newest tactical 22. This is the H&K G36 chambered in 22 LR. So what I want to do today is kind of a first impressions review of this rifle. I've had it for about a week, been able to shoot several rounds through it. I've learned some things about this rifle, and there's also some things that I already knew about this because of another tactical 22 that I own that's very similar. So what I want to do today is I just want to give you some information about this, give some good close-ups, and some other things that I've learned about this tactical 22. Okay, first let me show you that we're clear for sure. So nothing in the magazine, and nothing in the chamber. Okay, so let's talk about the origins of this rifle. So this rifle is modeled off of the H&K G36, its bigger brother that shoots .556 caliber cartridge. So this is the G36, but actually, if you look at the box here, it shows that this is actually a G36K, which makes sense because as you look at this rifle, it's very similar to the H&K G36. Has the same flash hider, has the same handguard, has the same rail here. Even has the dummy gas block, and I'll show you that in a little bit, just like it would on a real G36K. But what is not right about this rifle is the length of the barrel. K is a German word meaning short, and so when you have a G36K, it means it's a short one. And this barrel is not short at all. In fact, this is the longest tactical 22 that I have. It's even longer than my SIG 522 with the 20-inch heavy barrel on it. This rifle has been kind of hard for me to be able to get it in frame as I've been taking pictures of it and as I've been taking video of it for the normal, what I usually do with all my tactical 22s. This is a long rifle. And so everything's right for it to be the K model except the length of this barrel. Okay, so let me quickly talk about some specs on this thing. Obviously, it's chambered in 22 LR. The overall length is 37.8 inches, and this stock is not adjustable, it's only foldable. So when the stock is folded, it is 28.2 inches. So for those of you in California who have to have 26 inches, this thing absolutely meets that requirement, no problems. 28.2 inches with the stock folded. The barrel is 18.1 inches. And obviously this is a blowback action rifle. So this rifle is blowback action, but its bigger brother, the 556 version, is actually a gas piston system where the gas comes up into the piston and it drives an op rod that pushes the bolt back. And this is my H&K 41622, which is made from the same company, and I'll show you some comparisons here between these two and also to the other one that's actually even more similar to this, and I'll bring that out in a little bit. But the H&K 416, its bigger brother is gas operated, and same thing, operates with pushing an op rod that throws the bolt back. Now what I think is interesting between these two is both of these with their bigger brothers were developed by H&K. The H&K 416 was H&K's attempt to improve on the AR-15 platform, and introducing the gas piston system is an improvement, or some people will see it as improvement. Some people believe that the direct impingement's the way AR-15 should be, and that I'm not here for that argument today. But the 416 was H&K just trying to improve the AR-15. The G36 was really their design from the ground up. They completely redesigned this, and they made it the way that they absolutely wanted it. Which, and we'll get into this, the difference here from this G36 and its bigger brother is this magazine system, because the magazine system in the 22 LR version here is more of an AR-15 style system instead of the real G36's magazine system, for one thing, where it has the magazine release here instead of on the other side of the mag well. The other rifle that I mentioned a little while ago is this, my Beretta ARX1622. These two rifles right here are very, very similar. And throughout this review today, I'm going to be kind of going back and forth between this. Although this is not going to be a direct comparison in this review, I'll probably put out a more formal comparison of these two. But just to help with understanding of this rifle, I'm going to compare between these two whenever it helps us out. So let's talk about who actually makes this rifle. Now this has H&K stamped right here on it, but H&K does not make this rifle. Carl Walther is actually the one who makes this rifle. So H&K licenses this rifle, but Walther is the one who builds the rifle. And actually, it's Walther / Umarex. Umarex bought out Walther back in 1993, and they worked together. And the reason I'm saying that is because this rifle right here that we're going to be comparing shows right here that it's made in Germany by Umarex. And there are lots and lots of similarities. So this rifle is built by Walther / Umarex. H&K licenses. They let Walther use their name. They let them build it as close to this rifle as possible. Kind of going back to the GSG5, German sports gun tactical 22, that GSG made before they ever asked H&K, and that GSG5 is a clone of the MP5. And because that GSG5 was so close to the MP5, H&K sued them, and GSG had to change the design of their gun. Well, this gun is actually licensed through H&K, so as Walther builds this rifle, they don't have to cut any corners. They can make this as close to a real G36 as possible and not have to worry about H&K suing them. So there's lots and lots of similarities. There's only one real big difference between this rifle and the 5.56, well, other than the caliber, but there's only one major difference between this rifle and its bigger brother. One of the reasons that it's good to compare these two rifles is because these two rifles use a lot of the exact same parts. They use the same barrel lockup system. Their bolts are very similar. In fact, they're nearly identical. The trigger groups are very similar. There's a lot of parts, the exact same parts that are used here in the Beretta ARX1622 that are used in this new H&K G36. And the reason that's important is because you can buy parts for the Beretta ARX1622 from Brownells. You can go in there and they even have a schematic of this rifle, and you can look at the exact parts and find those part numbers, and you can buy them right from Brownells. So the firing pin that is in this bolt is the exact same firing pin in the G36. You can go on to Brownells, buy that firing pin here, and so if whatever happens, your firing pin cracks or whatever, something crazy happens, you can go and buy the same part that comes for this and use it in your G36. Okay, so let's talk about what this rifle is made of. So the handguard is polymer, which that would naturally be that way. The rail is polymer. This upper receiver is polymer. The lower receiver here is polymer. This magwell that hinges off just like on a real G36 is polymer. And obviously this fold-in stock is polymer. So it's basically polymer all the way through here. And so is this hand stop with the sling loops here on it. All of that's polymer. But it's very solid in the hand. When you hold this, there's really not a whole lot of flex. Like on this stock, you can see that. I mean, there's not much flex there. There's no play in the lower and upper. This handguard, there's just very, very little flex in anything, in any part of this rifle. It just absolutely feels solid in the hand, even though it's polymer pretty much all the way throughout. Let's weigh the rifle, and this has the 20 round mag in it, and you can see kind of at a weird angle here, but it's 5 pounds 4 ounces, so it's just a little over 5¼ pounds with this 20-round magazine in it. So it's a fairly light rifle. Okay, let's talk about trigger pull. So I can take the mag out. This does not have a magazine safety, so I'll be able to fire the gun without the mag in there. And you can see there it's a little under 7 pounds, but I've from doing some calibration with weighing other things that I know the weight of, it reads about ½ pound light. So it's showing 7 pounds right there. So I would say about 7½ pounds. And that's what I've tested it. I've probably pulled on that thing probably 10 times, and that's real close to what it's going to be, is anywhere from 7 to 7½ pound pull. So let's talk about the controls on the rifle. So it has an ambidextrous safety, left and right hand side. You have your charging handle on top here, just like on a real G36. So you can flip it that way, or you can flip it that way. And also, like on a real G36, you can get it there, push it in, and then on a real G36, you would use that as a forward assist. You may need that here, but I really don't think so. But it is just handy sometimes to have it on one side. If for whatever reason you're doing a drill for some particular reason, then you can just leave it over here, and it's easy to grab that charging handle. But either way, you can lock it on both sides here. Okay. Next is the mag release, which is really is difficult to get used to. On a real G36, the mag release is right down here. It's right on the back side of the magazine. You push that and it drops out. Here, on this, the 22 model, the mag release is over here on the left-hand side, which is very difficult to get used to because I'm used to AR-15s and AR-15 tactical 22s and dropping the mag right here. But you have to get used to that mag release being right there on the left-hand side. And that's the only place that you can release it. Also, it does have last round hold open. And there's no way to drop that besides getting the mag out and then dropping it from there. Also, there is a bolt catch that is right inside the trigger guard here. So if the bolt's back, you push up on that and it'll catch your bolt for you. Okay, so let's talk about the sighting system that's built into this rifle. So the front sight has this circle with the blade in it, and all of this is fixed, and this is all completely polymer here. The rear sight has windage and elevation adjustment built into it. And most of it's polymer, except this little aperture piece is made out of metal. But you can flip this, and the only gripe I have about the sighting system here is that, like when I push it in the forward position right there, you can see I can even have rest there or rest there or rest there. I mean, there's all kinds of places for it to rest. I mean, it does kind of have a natural place right there that it wants to rest. But if you accidentally bump that, it could go a little bit forward and mess with your accuracy. On the back side here, pretty much rests in that position, although you can get it in between. I mean, if you make sure and get it into that resting position every time, then you'll be okay, but you could knock it out of that, and it definitely can affect accuracy there. Both of these apertures have a pretty big hole in them, pretty big diameter there. And so when you're holding this, when you're sighting in on this, as I look through this one, this becomes more of a square to me, and I'm trying to put this circle inside of that square. So to me, this sighting system is good for quick target acquisition, because when I bring that up, I can see it real quick. But the downside for me, it seems like, is that I can't be as accurate with it. For instance, on my Beretta ARX1622, the peep sight on it is tiny, and so it takes a little while for my eyes to adjust to that sight. So it's not a quick target acquisition, but I feel like I can be more accurate with it than I can with this. So it's kind of the difference in a red dot and a scope. Do you want quick acquisition, or do you want to be able to shoot accurately when you're shooting? Now, I'm not saying you can't shoot accurately with this, and I'm also not saying that you can't train and get your eye used to getting quick target acquisition on a very small little peep. But I think in general, both of them are going to have those kind of disadvantages to both systems. Okay, next, length of pull. This has very nice length of pull. I'm not a huge guy. I'm right at 6 foot. But on some of my tactical 22s, even with the stocks extended out as far as they can, I still feel like I'm a little bit scrunched up. With this one, it feels very natural to me. It feels very comfortable. I measured from the back of the stock to the trigger, and it's 14 inches. So it's very nice. It's very natural for me to hold this rifle. I want to say a little bit more about this safety. This safety, going from safe to fire, I put my trigger pull gauge on this and seen what it took, and it was about 1.5 pounds to switch from safe to fire. And it feels good switching from safe to fire, but whenever you go back from fire to safe is whenever it just doesn't feel as nice at all. I put my trigger pull gauge going that way, and it was about 3.5 pounds. So there's a pretty big discrepancy there, going from safe to fire and then back from fire to safe. Okay, one thing that's very nice about this rifle, and it's similar to the Beretta ARX in this sense, is that it has a solid barrel, which is unlike the 41622, which is made by Walther HK also. It has just a barrel sleeve over a very thin pencil barrel. So if you thread off the flash hider on this 41622, you pull it out, that's the barrel on the 41622. So the G36 has a solid barrel. There's no barrel sleeve here, it's solid. So this flash hider is pinned on, but it's just a roll pin. You can knock that out very easily. Thread this off, and it has standard 1/2x28 threading underneath this flash hider, which is just like the Beretta ARX1622. Quickly want to put a caliper on this barrel just to show you the diameter, and it looks like it's just a little bit above 0.6 of an inch, about 6.61 of an inch. And also you can fold the stock over, and this brass deflector also acts as the catch for the stock, and so it catches right up inside of there. And also, that's one reason why this is hollowed out, is that you can shoot this in a pistol configuration. There's this slot in the folding stock here, allows shells to eject. Next, I want to show you how easy it is to take this rifle down. And actually, I've got another video where I show can you truly field strip this, and I'll put a link in the video here to that. But this rifle is incredibly easy to take down, and you don't need tools to do it. Bolt, mag release. So there are 3 pins that have to come out. There's one here, and one right here. Now, the first person on YouTube really to have this rifle and to review it was Shoot Fast Fun, and they showed that one of the problems with these pins, the way that they come from H&K, is those pins go this direction, going from left to right. But the problem is that is just like such a natural position for a mag release on an AR-15. And just like they suggested, and maybe it's because I saw it before and I was just thinking that, but I did the exact same thing. When that pin was coming through this way, I kept wanting to push that pin, and it just kept pushing in a little bit. So what I did is I reversed the pins like they suggested, where I run them from right to left now. So that if I do push that, I'm just pushing the pin in, and it's not going to hurt anything there. So these 3 pins come out, and you have your holder built here just like on a real G36. So you can put the pins right in there. And one thing I noticed as I was messing around with this after I had it kind of taken down is those pins, they don't really stay in place like that. They're going to rattle around, but because of this little cotter key or this little pin right here, this little spring, it'll keep it from falling out. So if you're messing around with it, those things won't come out unless you really pull on them. So those will stay in there even though they may rattle around a little bit. So once you get your takedown pins out, it's what you do is you fold the stock over, and then you're going to push this bolt assembly right here, this bolt stop. And when you push that, then you can pull out the lower. Now, on a real G36, once you take these two pins out, you don't even have to have the stock open. This will pull directly out. So that's one difference between this and the G36 is you have to push this in to be able to take the lower. Which that's one thing that I noticed about this is that's kind of a vestige of Walther and Umarex making the Beretta ARX1622. Because when you take down a real Beretta ARX160, you have to push in the bolt assembly or the bolt stop. Then and then on that you bring the fire selector past safe, and then it'll come out. And so this having to push the bolt in to be able to pull the lower out is kind of a vestige from their Beretta ARX1622. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. In fact, it's a good system. It's a good way to do it. I mean, they had to have some way to keep all this captured, but that's kind of what I think happened is they thought, well, that was such a good design that we'll just continue to use that. So you push this in, you pull the lower out. That comes free. The bolt, this whole assembly comes out. Charging handle comes out as whole. Your mag well, which has the mag release built onto it there, comes off. The handguard, you just push this pin out. This handguard comes right off. So here's the complete bolt assembly. Charging handle built into it. What I want to do is I want to show you how to take the bolt off of here, and it's actually very easy. There's a cross pin right here that is actually going through the firing pin, and the firing pin is actually kind of a flat blade that runs through here. But this cross pin goes through the firing pin, and it's actually going through two other places in here to hold all of this together, to hold kind of the upper half of this bolt assembly to the actual bolt down here. So what you have to do is you have to drive this little pin out right here, and you can either drive it from left to right or from right to left, either way. But as the firing pin, which is under spring tension being pushed back this way, obviously, is putting pressure on this little cross pin. So what you have to do is just push the firing pin, it just has to be pushed forward a little bit to take off the pressure. Now, on mine, it takes a little bit to be able to push that pin out. On my Beretta ARX1622, that has nearly the exact same bolt, it's the same system. On mine, when I push the firing pin forward, that can be pushed out very easily, and that's probably going to be the way it is for most people, but for mine, there's something in there that's not exactly right. It doesn't let it come free very easy. So I'm gonna have to put a little tool on that to help push it out real quick. Okay, so I'm gonna drive that out. I'm gonna push the firing pin in. And as I held that firing pin in, took a little pressure off of it, I pushed that through, and then from there I'm gonna push in the firing pin some more, and it should come out. Now, if you do this, and I suggest you doing this because it does get a bunch of junk up in here, be careful when you take this apart because there are two springs in here that can get lost very easily. There's one spring that's behind the extractor here, and it will fly very, very easily. And then also, obviously, the firing pin has a spring pushing it back. And those two springs are very similar in size, but when you take this apart, be careful because those things will jettison. Okay, so there's the firing pin, and it's got a little bit of grease on it there. Try to clean this up, but there's the firing pin, and there's the hole that cross pin goes through right there. So you can see there's the spring that pushes the firing pin back, and there's your extractor with the spring there, and there's another piece right there that keeps the extractor pushed that way. So just be careful of that because that one's a little bit difficult to get back in there. I mean, not too bad, but mainly be careful because that thing will fly out if you're not careful. So there's the little spring that puts tension on the firing pin. Now, what has to happen is when you put this back in on the firing pin, okay, when you put this back in the firing pin, it has this little nose right here. That's the sharp point. That's what hits the primer. Make sure, obviously, that it's down and on the same side as the extractor. Now, so what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get the spring up into this channel, up against that. Okay, the spring's got to go up into this channel right here, and it's got to be up against this flat side right here. So the easiest way I've found to be able to get the spring back in place in this firing pin is to go ahead and lay the spring in the channel, take your firing pin and set it about right there, and then whenever you have to shake it sometimes to get that spring to come down. There you go. So it is a little bit of a trick to get that on there just right. So once you get that in there, be careful because that thing can pop out very easily. Okay, then another thing to be careful of is this tiny little spring right here. This tiny little spring is what catches the groove on this cross pin. So when you push this through there, that cross pin locks right into that little spring right there. So just be careful of that little spring that it doesn't come out. So be careful as you put this carrier back on here because that firing pin is going to want to fly out of there. So you're going to push that up. You can see where that cross pin is going to go through, and you can see right in there that's where that little spring is at that's going to catch the groove on your cross pin. And you'll want to go ahead and push the firing pin up just a little bit to give a little bit of tension off of that. Like I said, mine's kind of difficult, so I'm going to have to... It's just a plastic part of the screwdriver there, just pushing that in there. There you go. That's how you kind of take this bolt from the carrier. Okay, so as I said before, I want to show you how the trigger actually breaks now that I can catch the hammer real easy right now. So there's just a tiny little bit of slack, maybe 2 to 3 millimeters, or maybe not even that. There's just a tiny little bit of slack. Then you get to this point, and then you are to the 7 and 7.5 pounds of pull. Now there's no creep, there's no sponge, there's nothing from here. From here is where it just absolutely breaks. All right, so there's the tiny little bit of slack, and then from there is where it breaks. And so this is as far back as I can pull that. So you can see you got a lot of room there. All right, let me show you the trigger reset. Right there's the reset. But that's as far as it goes back to its forward position. This trigger group has these little wings that kind of flank the hammer here, and they kind of act like an out-of-chamber safety. So if the bolt is back, it disengages that where you can't drop the hammer. But as soon as those are up, then you can drop it. So if these are pushed down, disengaged. So you can see right there's where it lets it loose. So to take the trigger group out of the lower here, out of this pistol grip, there is a 4mm hex head in there. You have to take that out. So there's your bolt and there's your washer. And then from there, there's nothing holding it on beside the safety. So what you have to do is, there's going to be a little bit of play here. You're going to push it up, and then from there, and this has to be in the safe. If it's in the fire, it won't pull out. But there's a little bit of play. You push it up in the safe, then this just pulls out. And then this pulls out, and then from there, this whole trigger assembly pulls free. Now, I haven't taken this apart yet, and I'd be kind of leery of that because there's probably lots of parts in here. I may eventually do that one day, but I haven't taken this thing apart yet. But one thing is, you can see right here, here's your bolt catch, and you can see what it's doing is when you push this, it pushes this up, and then inside here, it pushes that right there, which catches your bolt. Put it back in. You have to make sure this is up. Put that in there. Put that in there. Push it down. Okay. And then put our bolt and washer back on. And what I want to do now is I just want to get some good close-ups of the inside here so you can kind of see the nooks and crannies. So from this side, back on this opposite wall over here, that's definitely where it got dirty. Had to clean that up. And as you look down it, there's polymer rails that the bolt runs along inside of there. Okay, now let me talk about reliability for a little bit. First of all, I took it out the first day I had it and shot 320 rounds through it, and I'll put a link in the video to that video as well. In those 320 rounds, I did not have one single failure. It operated flawlessly. It was perfect. I didn't have one single problem. But like I said, I've only had this thing for a week, and I haven't been able to put 5,000 or 10,000 rounds through it, so I can't speak to its ultimate reliability. But as of right now, it seems as though it's going to be a solid rifle, and especially since it's so similar to my Beretta ARX1622, and it's operated flawlessly and been a solid rifle for me. I don't expect anything different out of this, just to be honest. I really feel like this is going to be just a very solid rifle. Okay, so today when I went out and did my accuracy testing, I was trying to use this to get some very good results, but actually I had problems with this round right here. Number one is it was not feeding properly. It failed to feed several times. This Federal Premium High Velocity Match. First feeding failure. Okay, I don't know what's up with this stuff. Everything else is fed perfect. This not feeding good at all. So that video I took was 4 or 5 rounds ago, and every round between there didn't feed at all. This one started to barely feed. But you can just see it's nosed way up, just barely started to feed. Then as the bolt closed, it just pushed it down into the mag, the bottom of it. Now, what I think is interesting about this is the only other real review, or well, the only other review on YouTube is from Shoot Fast Fun, and he was using Federal Auto Match. And if you compare these two rounds, this is Auto Match, and this is that High Velocity Match, and they're both 40 grains. And the Auto Match is at 1,200 feet per second, and the High Velocity Match is 40 grains, 1,200 feet per second. So they're nearly identical in ballistics there. And the Auto Match is the one that he had problems with. Auto Match right here. And this is the one I had problems with. So I don't know if it's just the shape of this bullet or what it was, but with that High Velocity Match, I just had failure to feed after failure to feed with that. And not only that, as I was bench resting on the back of my car, there were lead shavings all over the place. I don't know if you'll be able to see it very well or not. Well, yeah. This is where I'm bench resting right here on the back of my car, and you can see lead shaving all over the place. Pretty good chunks there. When I got finished with that, I loaded standard velocity back in and shot more standard velocity, and it shot perfectly. No, not a single hang up with that. So the main problem was with just this round. I don't think it's necessarily with the rifle. It's just something to do with this round. For some reason, my rifle does not like this Federal, and I didn't have any Auto Match with me out on the range. So I'll take this for sure next time and fire some of this and see if I kind of run into any issues with this. All right, let's talk about accuracy for just a second. So I mounted my Nikon ProStaff Rimfire BDC 150 onto this rifle, and to do that I had to take off these sights on here, and I just had to drive one pin out to take the front sight off, and I had to drive 2 pins out to take this one off, and you had to take the rail off to get that off. But I needed to do that so I can mount this on here for those medium rise rings there. And so I recorded the majority of this review about a week ago. I did the original shooting about 2 weeks ago, and since I recorded this review about a week ago, I've been editing every single night, and it's just taken me a long time to get this review done. But the good thing about that is it gave me time to go out. Today's Saturday, to be able to go out and shoot a few rounds with the scope mounted on there so I can really test out accuracy. What I was shooting primarily in this accuracy test was CCI standard velocity. I tried some Federal high velocity match and actually had some hang-ups with that, and I'll talk about that in the reliability part of the review here. But the standard velocity worked out great. Now, while I was doing my accuracy testing today, the wind was variable. It was coming from left to right sometimes. It was coming right to left. Sometimes it was at my back. It was just all over the place today. So I didn't group up as good as I would like, but for this not being a high precision match rifle, I felt like it's pretty good. Number one, it's not a bolt rifle. Number two, this trigger is 7.5 pounds. It's not a match trigger by any means. The one thing about this rifle that now that I've spent some more time thinking about this, I think I would describe this trigger as abrupt, the way it breaks. It's just barely any slack, and then it's just abrupt the way it breaks, which is probably not the best thing for a trigger. But even with all that said, it was pretty good accuracy. So I'm going to roll in the video of this. And of course I spent some time sighting all this in, but this was one group that I shot, and I was aiming here and I just wasn't sighted far enough over. But that's the group I got as I aimed for this right here, and I'm going to roll that in right now. Next, I shot this group. It hit right there, so I moved it a little bit more and got that grouping right there. Alright, and then the last group I'm going to show you here is this one right here. This one was already there, and all of these were already there, so it's this group right here. Kind of had this one little flyer here, but that's kind of the grouping I had. And I was at about between 80 and 90 yards, probably closer to 90 yards from where I was shooting. Okay, next thing is the magazines for this rifle. The magazines for this rifle are actually very plentiful because this rifle uses the same mags as my H&K 41622, my Beretta ARX1622, and as the Colt M422. All of these use the same magazine because they're all made by Walther /Umarex. So any of these mags that are made for any of those are compatible with each other. And I've got a video talking about the magazine compatibility with this, and I'll put a link to that video as well. But these magazines are very, very high quality. There's no flex in them. There's no creep. It doesn't feel like it's cheap, thin plastic. They just feel very, very high quality. So to clean this thing out, first of all, it's what you have to do is like on a just kind of AR-15 mag. You push this down, this plate slides out, and then be careful because you have this piece and the spring. Now to get your follower out, you have to take off these little finger assists here, thumb assist. And it's what you need is a 2.5 millimeter hex to be able to get that apart. And so you have a bolt on this side, and there's a nut on this side, and this nut is held into a hex design on this side. So this is, you don't have to put a wrench to hold this side. So you just screw this off. Okay, that pulls loose. Be careful on this side, because this pulls loose. It has this nut in it. And you probably just heard my follower fell out. Once you get that out, the follower just falls right out of there. And then to get up into there, there's just a groove running all the way up in there, and there's really no places to get up in this space right here. If you run a cloth or something up in there, you'll be able to get this clean relatively easy. It'll just slide right down through here and not have much of a problem of getting that thing cleaned out. So these mags, high quality, they're built very sturdy and are going to be very, very easy to clean as well. Mags on this, very good, very nice, and there's plenty of them, and you can get them for a decent price. I've bought some of these 30 round magazines for, I think I bought them for $20, but I've noticed they've kind of gone up since then. But I think if you look and kind of wait around a little bit till you find a good deal, you can probably get these for around $20. And all of these, they say they're 30 rounds, but they actually hold 31 rounds. Okay, so another important thing for me whenever I deal with, well, really with anything or with lots of things, is what kind of support can I get for it? And one form of support that's very important to me is, are there forums online that will help me to get through this, to help me to figure out problems if I can't figure it out myself? There's a decent forum. H&KPro.com has a forum that well, it kind of has just one thread going on there now. But there's a guy on there, TRPCLFVR. I'm not sure exactly what that stands for, but he's a guy there on HKPro.com, and he has one of these rifles, and he's figuring out all kinds of different accessories to add onto it, and he's really given me a lot of ideas, and he's kind of helped me as we've kind of gone through this together to figure out about some different things related to this firearm. So that's a good place to go over to hkpro.com and find that thread there and be able to get help there. Also, as I've mentioned, Shoot Fast Fun is the first one who really reviewed this on YouTube, and I've been able to watch their videos on that. Helped me out quite a bit. So one more thing, let's talk about price. At this point in the game, this rifle is very new. It was announced at SHOT Show 2015, and right now it's about mid-February, so it's been out for about 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. And at this point, it's pretty pricey. It's around the $500 mark. I bought mine for $499 with $15 shipping, of course paying the $20 FFL transfer fee. But I've seen them anywhere from $499 up to $550, and that's probably at this point, or February 2015, that's kind of the price that you're looking at. I think as we get several months into this, maybe even take half a year or so, I think that price will probably creep down a little bit, but I think for a little while it's going to be above the $400 mark. So kind of in conclusion, this rifle is a sweet rifle. It's been reliable. It shot those 320 rounds perfectly on the first day. There's nothing like that to kind of make you feel good about buying a rifle, that it shot like it was supposed to, didn't have a single problem with it. And I know that this is going to be a very, very nice addition to my Tactical 22 collection. Again, this is B coming to you from G&A. I hope that some of the stuff I presented here will help you to understand more about this rifle. Thanks for watching today.